Picture this. It's the year 2000. Millions of Americans are sitting in front of their televisions, watching one of the most outrageous shows on daytime TV. People are laughing. Audience members are chanting. Security guards are rushing across the stage. And somewhere in the middle of the chaos, a woman is being publicly humiliated in front of a national audience. What nobody knew at the time was that within hours of that episode airing, that the same woman would be dead. Her murder would become one of the most infamous crimes ever connected to the reality television. Even today, many people still ask the same question. Did a daytime talk show help push a violent man over the edge? Or was this tragedy inevitable long before the camera started rolling? This is the story of the murder that forever became known as the Jerry Springer murder. We got another story. As always, I make these videos for entertainment purposes and to spread awareness on the victim situation, as well as give insight on how you could possibly avoid something like this from happening. Without further ado, these are real facts, real stories, real people with yours truly, Brax. Let's get into the story because this one is pretty insane. Long before television producers got involved, there was already trouble brewing. At the center of the story was a woman named Nancy. Friends described her as emotional, hopeful, deeply invested in her relationships. There was a man named Ralf. For years, the two had been involved in a turbulent relationship that seems incapable of ending cleanly. The couple divorced in 1999. For most people, a divorce marks the end of a chapter. For Nancy and Ralf, it was only the beginning of something much darker. Despite their separation, the two continued seeing each other. Arguments became common, accusations flew back and forth, police reports began piling up. And then there was another woman, a woman named Eleanor. Ralf constantly bounced between the two relationships. One day he was with Nancy, the next day he was with Eleanor. The emotional chaos created a dangerous cycle that left everyone angry, jealous, and exhausted. Yet nobody could seem to walk away. What Nancy didn't fully realize was that while she still believed reconciliation was possible, Ralf had already moved on in ways she couldn't imagine. And soon, producers from one of America's most controversial television shows would insert themselves directly into the drama. In 2000, producers from The Jerry Springer Show contacted the trio. At the time, the show was one of the highest rated daytime programs in America. Its formula was simple: take dysfunctional relationships, add public confrontation, then sit back and watch the fireworks. The producers believed that they had found the perfect story: a former wife, a new wife, and a man trapped between them. But according to Nancy's family, she wasn't told the entire truth. Nancy reportedly believed she was being invited onto the show for a completely different reason. She thought Ralf wanted another chance. She believed the appearance might lead to a reconciliation. She hoped there was still a future for them. Instead, she was walking into what many later described as an ambush. When filming began in Chicago, Nancy quickly realized something was terribly wrong. Ralf wasn't there to reunite with her. He was there with Eleanor, his new wife. The audience erupted. People laughed. People shouted. Some mocked Nancy's appearance. Others encouraged the confrontation. Suddenly, the woman who thought she was getting a second chance at love became the target of a nationwide spectacle. The humiliation was immediate, and according to family members, devastating. Nancy attempted to leave. She wanted out, but the damage had already been done. Millions of viewers would eventually watch their painful encounter unfold on national TV. What nobody realized was that the episode had created a ticking time bomb. The show was recorded months before it aired. Life moved on, at least on the surface. Behind closed doors, however, tensions continued escalating. Police became familiar with the names involved. Domestic violence allegations continued. Arguments grew more intense, and courts were increasingly being asked to intervene. Then came July 24th, 2000, a date that will forever change everything. Earlier that day, Nancy received encouraging news. A judge granted her sole ownership of the home she had previously shared with Ralf. Even more importantly, a restraining order was issued. Legally, Ralph was ordered to stay away from her. For Nancy, it appeared to be a major victory. She was finally reclaiming control of her life. But that same evening, something else happened. The Jerry Springer episode finally aired. Across America, viewers watched the confrontation, including the people involved. According to the investigators, Ralph was drinking at a local bar while the episode played on television. Witnesses later described him becoming increasingly upset. Whether it was the humiliation, the court ruling, the alcohol, or some combination of all three, something snapped. And sometime after leaving the bar, Ralph headed towards Nancy's home, the place he had been ordered not to go. What happened next was horrific. At some point during the evening, violence erupted inside Nancy's house. By the time it was over, Nancy was dead. Investigators would later describe an extraordinarily brutal crime scene. Nancy had been beaten, she had been strangled. The injuries were so severe that law enforcement officials said her face had been left almost unrecognizable. Evidence covered the scene. Bloody footprints stretched throughout the residence. Signs of violent struggle were everywhere. It appeared Nancy had fought desperately to survive. The attack wasn't quick, it wasn't accidental, it was personal. However, whoever killed her had unleashed an incredible amount of rage, and detectives quickly focused on the person who seemed to have both motive and opportunity. The same man who had spent years trapped in a toxic cycle with her. The same man who had appeared beside her on national television. The same man who had been ordered by a judge to stay away. Ralf Panitz. As investigators processed the crime scene, evidence began piling up. The bloody footprints discovered inside the home became a major piece of the investigation. Detectives believed the prints matched shoes belonging to Ralph. Then came DNA evidence. Under Nancy's fingernail, investigators discovered biological material linked to Ralph. To prosecutors, this suggested Nancy had fought back during her final moments. The evidence painted a powerful picture. A restraining order had been issued that very day. The suspect had reason to be angry. He had allegedly gone to the home despite being legally prohibited from doing so. And physical evidence appeared to place him directly inside the crime scene. For prosecutors, the case seemed straightforward, but the defense was preparing for a fight, and they planned to challenge almost everything. The trial began in 2002. It immediately attracted national attention, partly because of the shocking nature of the murder, but mostly because of the connection to Jerry Springer. Defense attorneys attempted to dismantle the prosecution's case. They argued investigators had reached the wrong conclusion. Experts were called. Alternative explanations were proposed. At one point, the defense even suggested Nancy may have suffered a fatal medical event during a confrontation with someone else. Prosecutors pushed back aggressively. They argued the evidence told a clear story. The footprints, the DNA, the restraining order, the timeline. Everything pointed in the same direction. Jurors listened carefully as both sides presented their arguments. For days, they examined photos, testimonies, and forensic evidence. Then came deliberations. The decision would determine whether one of television's most infamous crime stories ended in accountability or unanswered questions. After roughly 18 hours of discussion, the jury reached a verdict. Ralf Panitz was found guilty of second-degree murder. The courtroom fell silent. For Nancy's family, the verdict brought relief, but not closure. Nothing could bring back Nancy. Nothing could erase what happened. And nothing could change the disturbing role reality television played in the public. That was a pretty insane story. If you guys enjoyed, argue with the like button. But until then, I'll see you guys in the next one. Those were real stories with real people.